Never defend yourself. Sounds strange, right? Because the first instinct when someone attacks you with words, when someone misunderstands you, when someone paints you in a bad light, is to jump up and explain. You want to clear the record, to prove them wrong, to set things straight. But here's the truth. The more you defend yourself, the more you give power to the very thing you're trying to escape. Think about it. The moment you start defending, you've already stepped into their arena. You've allowed their words to dictate your actions. You've handed over your peace of mind just to convince someone who may have already made up their mind about you. And what's the payoff? At best, you look desperate to prove a point. At worst, you confirm the exact image they've painted of you. You don't need to defend yourself when you know your truth. Your life is already defending you. Your consistency, your character, your daily actions, they're louder than any speech you could give in your own defense. When you stand in your integrity, people eventually see it. They may not see it today, but time has a way of revealing everything. Silence is not weakness. It's strength under control. Anyone can argue. Anyone can throw words back. But it takes real discipline to stand tall, to smile, to let the storm pass without needing to justify who you are. People who are secure don't scramble to prove themselves. They don't chase validation. They understand that what's said about them isn't nearly as important as what's lived out by them. So the next time you feel that pull to explain yourself, to fight back, to prove them wrong, ask yourself, who am I really doing this for? If it's for your own ego, let it go. If it's for someone's approval, let it go. Because the people who truly know you don't need an explanation, and the people who don't know you won't believe it anyway. Never defend yourself. It's easy to say, but let's be honest, it's one of the hardest things to actually live out. Because we're wired to want people to understand us. We crave being seen, being heard, being validated, and when someone questions our motives, when someone twists our words, when someone spreads something untrue about us, everything in us wants to jump up and argue back. It feels like injustice. It feels like we're being put on trial in a courtroom we never signed up for. But here's the thing. Every time you defend yourself, you're handing over the gavel to someone who doesn't deserve to judge you. You're saying, here, you decide who I am. You get to be the authority over my character. And if you live that way, you'll spend your whole life in other people's courts, pleading your case to people who have no business holding that kind of power over you. The world is full of misunderstandings. People will misread your silence. They'll misinterpret your actions. They'll twist your words to fit their narrative. And if you spend your life defending yourself against every single misinterpretation, you'll burn yourself out. You'll waste your energy trying to fix opinions that were never in your control to begin with. Think about it. When was the last time you defended yourself and actually walked away feeling lighter? Usually, it's the opposite. You walk away replaying the conversation in your head, wishing you had said it differently, wishing you had sounded stronger, wishing they would have believed you. But the truth is, people don't hear your defense through your words. They hear it through the filter of their own perspective. And if they've already decided to see you a certain way, nothing you say is going to undo that. That's why the most powerful move is no move at all. Silence. Letting your life speak. Letting time tell the story. Because time always tells the story. The people who doubted you, they eventually see the results of your consistency. The ones who lied about you, eventually their own pattern of dishonesty catches up with them. And the ones who misunderstood you, eventually they realize you never changed. You were just steady all along. Silence doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're guilty. It means you're free. Free from the exhausting cycle of trying to manage other people's thoughts. Free from the need to explain your every action. Free from the pressure of proving your worth to people who were never meant to carry that role in your life. When you stop defending yourself, you start protecting yourself, your peace, your focus, your energy. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying you should never speak up. There's a difference between explaining and defending. Explaining is for clarity, when it's needed and when it's asked for in good faith. Defending is about trying to win approval, trying to control how you're seen, trying to protect your reputation in the eyes of people who don't really matter. And that's the trap, because the more you try to control perception, the less authentic your life becomes. You're no longer living for you, you're living for them. And here's the truth, no matter how hard you try, you will never win that game. Because the same people you defend yourself to today will question you again tomorrow. The same people who demand an explanation now will demand another one later. They don't want understanding, they want control. And the moment you stop feeding that, you starve the control they thought they had over you. Have you noticed how the most confident people you know never rush to explain themselves? They let their actions do the talking. They don't argue every rumor. They don't clap back at every critic. They don't defend themselves because they don't have to. Their life already makes the statement. And if you pay attention, those people are the ones who always seem the most at peace. Because they've chosen a path that prioritizes inner truth over outward approval. It's like this: imagine your life as a movie. Every day you wake up, you're living out a new scene. The people around you, they're the audience. Some are cheering, some are silent, some are criticizing, some are walking out. But here's the thing, you're not responsible for how they interpret the movie. You're responsible for acting it out with integrity. Some people will get it on the first watch. Some people will need time. And some people may never understand. That's not your burden. Your job is to keep playing your role with truth, with consistency, with authenticity. And the longer you live that way, the less tempting it becomes to defend yourself. Because you realize your character speaks louder than your defense ever could. You realize you don't have to chase after every rumor, because people who are looking for truth will eventually find it in your actions. You realize a silence is not a lack of strength, it's proof of strength. Now, let's talk about relationships, because this shows up the most with the people closest to us. Sometimes it's friends, family, co-workers, even partners. Someone accuses you of something. They misunderstand your intentions, they question your loyalty, and you want to fight back with, "No, that's not what I meant. That's not what I did. You've got it all wrong." But if you find yourself constantly needing to defend who you are to the same people, then the problem isn't with you, it's with the relationship. The right people in your life don't need constant explanations. They trust your character. They know your heart. They give you the benefit of the doubt. And even if there's confusion, they approach you with curiosity, not accusation. They want to understand you, not condemn you. And that's the difference. Explaining to people who love you strengthens the bond. Defending yourself to people who've already judged you weakens you. And maybe you've noticed this. Every time you explain yourself to the wrong people, it still doesn't satisfy them, because they weren't really looking for the truth. They were looking for confirmation of the story they'd already written in their head. That's why no amount of defending ever works. You could hand them all the facts, all the proof, all the receipts, and they'd still twist it to fit their narrative. So why waste your breath? Why waste your peace? There's freedom in realizing you don't owe everyone an explanation. Your life is your life. Your choices are your choices. Your growth is your growth. And if someone can't see it, that's not your problem. Some people are blind to your progress because they're too focused on your past. Some people can't celebrate your growth because they're threatened by it. Some people will never acknowledge your truth because it forces them to confront their own lies. And that has nothing to do with you. Think about the times you've defended yourself and ask, did it change the person's mind or did it just drain you? Most of the time, it just drains you. But when you hold your peace, when you keep your focus, when you let time do the talking, something shifts. Because people respect consistency more than they respect arguments. They respect actions more than words. And they respect someone who refuses to be shaken by outside noise. This is not about arrogance. It's not about walking around saying, "I don't care what anyone thinks." It's about wisdom. It's about knowing where to put your energy. It's about recognizing that not every accusation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding deserves your breath. Not every critic deserves your time. Silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care too much about your peace to let it be stolen. And here's the most powerful part. When you stop defending yourself, you start seeing who's really for you. Because the people who love you don't need your defense. They know you. They've seen you. They trust you. They don't ask you to prove yourself over and over again. And the ones who walk away because you refuse to defend yourself, they were never really with you in the first place. So let me say it again, never defend yourself. Not because you're above people, not because you don't value relationships, but because defending yourself is a never-ending battle you don't need to fight. You've only got so much energy in this life. Spend it building, not defending. Spend it living, not explaining. Spend it showing up as your authentic self, not trying to convince people who may never be convinced. And you'll notice something interesting happens the moment you stop defending yourself. People begin to reveal who they really are around you. The ones who only stick around when you're explaining yourself will slowly fade because they're not getting the fuel they came for. They were never invested in your truth. They were invested in their drama. But the ones who stay, the ones who respect your silence, the ones who choose to believe in your consistency even without explanations, those are the people who truly matter. Defending yourself is like trying to chase smoke with your hands. The more you reach for it, the more it slips through your fingers. And every time you try to grab it, you end up frustrated, exhausted, empty-handed. But when you step back, when you let the smoke clear on its own, suddenly the air becomes breathable again. That's what it feels like to stop chasing people's approval. That's what it feels like to let go of the need to be understood by everyone. Now think about how much energy you've wasted in the past trying to explain yourself to people who weren't even listening. Maybe it was at work when a colleague misrepresented you. Maybe it was with family when they doubted your intentions. Maybe it was online when strangers decided to throw labels on you. And you spent hours, sometimes days, defending, clarifying, typing paragraphs, making calls, having conversations that went nowhere. At the end of it all, did it move you forward? Did it build anything in your life? Or did it just leave you drained? Life is too short to waste explaining yourself to people who have no intention of seeing you clearly. Because the truth is not everyone deserves access to your heart, your thoughts, your reasons. Some people haven't earned that level of access. And when you defend yourself to them, You're essentially handing over pieces of yourself to people who were never meant to carry them. It's like giving the keys to your house to a stranger who's only planning to criticize the furniture. Why invite that in? There's also a subtle form of pride hidden in constantly defending yourself, because at its core, defending is about control. It's about trying to control how others see you. It's about shaping their perspective so you can feel safe in their approval. But real confidence doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender, from knowing you can't control every thought, every perception, every rumor, and being okay with that. Confidence is saying, believe what you want, I'm still going to show up as me. And that's where your power lies. When you stop defending, you start living with a kind of quiet boldness, a kind of calm assurance. You stop obsessing over whether people approve, and you start investing in becoming the best version of yourself regardless of who's watching. Because the truth is, most people aren't watching as closely as you think. Most people are too busy defending themselves in their own lives. So why waste yours trying to manage theirs? The people who talk about you will keep talking whether you defend yourself or not. The people who misunderstand you will keep misunderstanding whether you defend yourself or not. The people who want to see you fail will keep looking for reasons to criticize whether you defend yourself or not. And here's the beauty. None of that changes who you really are. None of that changes your worth. None of that changes the work you're here to do. When you stop defending yourself, you take back control over your narrative, not by forcing others to see it, but by living it out daily. You let your character write the story. You let your actions speak louder than any rumor. You let your peace be the proof that you don't need to engage in every battle. And over time, even your critics run out of words, because there's nothing more frustrating to them than someone who refuses to play their game. There's an old saying, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty and the pig likes it. Defending yourself often feels like that. You get pulled into arguments that go nowhere. You step down from your purpose just to roll around in someone else's negativity. And in the end, they enjoy it while you walk away covered in mud. But when you refuse to defend yourself, when you refuse to step into the ring, you rise above it. You remain clean. You keep your focus. You stay on your path. And here's something else. When you stop defending yourself, you inspire others. Because most people don't know how to handle criticism, lies, or misunderstanding without immediately firing back. They don't know how to sit in silence without proving themselves. When they see you hold your peace, when they see you walk with quiet strength, when they see you trust your truth without needing to advertise it, it gives them permission to do the same. You become an example of what it looks like to live free. Now, freedom doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It doesn't mean you ignore real problems. What it means is that you choose your battles wisely. You respond with action instead of arguments. You demonstrate instead of defend. You build instead of bicker. And in doing so, you win in ways that words alone could never achieve. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they're not people who spent their lives arguing back at every critic. They're people who stayed the course, who kept showing up, who let their work, their integrity, and their consistency defend them. That's what leaves a legacy. Not clever comebacks, not long defenses, but a steady, faithful life lived with intention. And the truth is, sometimes silence speaks louder than defense because it unsettles people. When someone expects you to argue and you don't, when someone tries to provoke you and you don't bite, when someone throws fire at you and you don't throw it back, it forces them to sit with themselves. It leaves them with their own words ringing in their ears. And that silence can be louder than any speech you could have given. So let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. That's not your weight to carry. Your weight is to keep living your truth, to keep building your purpose, to keep walking your path. Because in the end, defending yourself won't win you peace. Living your truth will. And one day, the same people who doubted you, misunderstood you, or criticized you might look back and realize they were wrong, not because you argued them into seeing it, but because you lived it out so consistently they couldn't deny it anymore. That's the power of never defending yourself. You know what happens when you defend yourself too much? You start believing that you actually need to. You create this internal habit of constantly proving your worth, constantly validating your choices, constantly explaining who you are. And that mindset bleeds into everything: your work, your relationships, your future. Suddenly, you're not living to be authentic anymore. You're living to avoid being misunderstood. That's a heavy prison to live in because you'll never win. There will always be one more person who doubts you, one more person who twists your words, one more person who thinks they know your intentions better than you do. But when you stop defending yourself, something incredible happens. You realize you're already free. You realize you never had to put yourself on trial in the first place. You realize that your peace is worth more than someone else's approval. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you don't want to go back. You don't want to waste another minute giving explanations to people who aren't even listening. Some of the greatest pain in life comes from people misunderstanding you. Maybe they thought you were arrogant when you were just confident. Maybe they thought you were careless when you were just moving fast. Maybe they thought you didn't care when you were just protecting your energy. And you tried so hard to explain, to clear things up, to make them see. But here's what you learn. People only understand from their level of perception. If their lens is cloudy, no amount of your words will clear it. They've got to clean their own lens, and that's not your job. When you live without defending yourself, you're choosing peace over perception. You're saying, I would rather be at peace with myself than be approved by you. And that kind of courage is rare, because most people would rather be accepted than authentic. But acceptance built on defense is fragile. It crumbles the moment you stop explaining. Authenticity, on the other hand, is unshakable, because it doesn't depend on outside opinions. It's rooted in your truth. There's also something deeply powerful about mystery. When you don't defend yourself, you don't give away all your energy, you don't hand out every detail of your life for people to dissect. You keep a kind of quiet strength, and people feel that. They may not understand you, but they respect the fact that you're not scrambling to prove yourself. They may not agree with you, but they can't deny the steadiness you walk in. That's influence, not loud, not defensive, not desperate, just quietly strong. And think about the ripple effect this has in your life. In your career, when you stop defending yourself at every turn, you save energy for what actually matters, producing results. Results will defend you in ways words never can. At home, when you stop defending yourself in every argument, you open space for deeper connection. Sometimes the best response is no response at all, because silence gives time for reflection. And in your personal growth, when you stop defending your choices, you finally give yourself permission to grow without needing permission. Now, let's take this even deeper. Defending yourself often comes from fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being seen in the wrong light. But here's the paradox: the very act of defending often pushes you into the exact thing you fear. The more you defend, the more rejected you feel when they don't accept your words. The more you explain, the more misunderstood you feel when they twist them again. The more you fight for the right light, the more it seems they insist on painting you in the dark. That's why letting go is so powerful. Because the moment you stop defending, you stop feeding the fear. And when the fear starves, the freedom grows. Ask yourself, what kind of life do you want to live? A life where you're constantly exhausted from explaining, proving, justifying, or a life where you're steady, peaceful, focused on building something that speaks for itself? Every time you choose not to defend yourself, you're casting a vote for that second life. Every time you hold your tongue instead of arguing, every time you keep walking instead of stopping to explain, you're building a habit of strength. And over time, those habits turn into character. There's a phrase, you don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to protect your peace. And that's the truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you set boundaries, for how you grow, for how you live. The right people won't demand it. The wrong people won't believe it. So why waste it? Live your truth boldly, quietly, consistently, and let that be enough. Imagine your life 5 years from now if you stopped defending yourself today. How much energy would you save? How much stress would you release? How much more could you build, create, achieve, enjoy if you weren't constantly tied up in defending? That's the vision to hold on to. Not the short-term satisfaction of proving someone wrong, but the long-term reward of living unbothered, unstoppable, unshaken. And let's be real, there will always be noise. Always. As long as you're alive, someone will have something to say about you. That's not going to change. But you get to decide how much of that noise you let inside. You get to decide whether to fight every echo or to let it fade on its own. You get to decide whether to waste your breath defending or to use that same breath building. That choice is yours every single day. And the people who matter, they already know your heart. They already see your effort. They already trust your intentions. They don't need a defense. They don't need a long explanation. They don't need you to prove yourself over and over. They just need you to keep showing up. Keep being you. Keep living your truth. And that's enough. So when the accusations come, when the misunderstandings rise, when the noise gets loud, take a deep breath. Remember who you are. Remember what you stand for. And instead of defending yourself, let your life speak for you, because in the end, it always will. And maybe the hardest part about never defending yourself is the patience it requires. Because when someone misunderstands you or misrepresents you, there's a part of you that desperately wants to fix it right now. You want to grab their perception with both hands and bend it back into shape. But that's not how life works. Perception isn't clay you can mold with a single explanation. It's a seed that grows over time. And when you stay consistent, when you keep showing up, when you don't get shaken by every accusation, that seed of truth grows on its own. The people who doubt you today may not understand tomorrow. But give it enough time and they'll look back and realize the truth was always right there. And even if they never see it, the peace you gain from not fighting battles that aren't yours is worth far more than convincing one more skeptic. Because peace is priceless, and every defense costs a piece of it. Let's put it like this: when you walk into a courtroom, the one who is truly innocent doesn't panic. They don't feel the need to jump up every 2 minutes shouting, "That's not true." They trust the evidence. They trust the process. They sit quietly because they know the truth will eventually defend itself. In the same way, your life is the evidence. Your character is the evidence. Your consistency is the evidence. And the longer you live with integrity, the louder that evidence speaks. You don't have to play attorney for yourself every single day. You don't have to argue every case. You just have to keep showing up, living right, and letting the truth win in the long run. And yes, people will take advantage of your silence. Some will say they didn't even deny it, so it must be true. But that's the short-sighted view. Because over time, those same people run out of arguments when reality doesn't match their story. Rumors fade when they don't have evidence. Lies crumble when they don't align with what people see in you day after day. Time always reveals the difference between a story and the truth. What if the very thing you're defending yourself against is the thing that makes you stronger? Because every time someone misrepresents you and you don't defend, you're building endurance. Every time someone doubts you and you stay steady, you're building resilience. Every time someone criticizes you and you keep moving forward, you're proving to yourself that your worth is not tied to their words. That's how character is forged, not in the comfort of being praised, but in the silence of being misunderstood and still standing tall. Sometimes silence is the most powerful argument you can make, because silence forces people to look at your life instead of your words. It forces them to sit with their own assumptions. It leaves space for the truth to surface without your interference. And while silence feels uncomfortable in the moment, it creates strength in the long run. You don't need to fight every fire. Some flames die quicker when you stop fanning them. Defending yourself is often just adding oxygen to a fire that was about to burn out on its own. But when you walk away, when you refuse to fuel it, the fire runs out of energy. And soon the smoke clears, leaving nothing behind but the strength you showed by not engaging. Let me ask you this. Who are you trying to convince when you defend yourself? Is it the other person? Or is it yourself? Because a lot of times the urge to defend comes from a place of insecurity. Deep down, you're afraid maybe they're right. Maybe their words hit a wound you haven't healed yet. And defending becomes a way of soothing that wound. But the real healing doesn't come from arguing with them. It comes from facing yourself. It comes from knowing who you are so deeply that no outside voice can shake it. When you stop defending yourself, you're not just choosing silence. You're choosing strength. You're saying, I know who I am and I don't need your approval to validate it. And that's the kind of strength that carries you through life, because the world will always test you. The world will always have opinions. The world will always throw labels and judgments. But if you can stand tall without defending, you become untouchable. Not because people stop talking, but because their words no longer have the power to move you. And here's the secret. Most people who attack you are only looking for a reaction. They're not after the truth, they're after control. They want to see you flinch. They want to see you stumble. They want to know they can get to you. And the moment you defend, you give them what they want. But when you stay silent, when you keep steady, when you refuse to react, you take away their power. You show them that your peace is not for sale. It's not about ignoring injustice or pretending words don't hurt. Of course, words hurt. Of course, being misunderstood is painful. But the point is, you don't have to carry that pain into every conversation. You don't have to spend your life bleeding energy into battles that don't move you forward. Sometimes the best defense is not to fight at all, but to heal yourself so deeply that no attack can cut you. And maybe that's the ultimate freedom, not just the freedom from defending yourself to others, but the freedom from needing to defend yourself to yourself. Because when you truly know your worth, when you truly accept your flaws and your strengths, when you truly embrace your journey, you no longer argue with yourself in the mirror. You stop saying, I have to prove I'm enough. You start saying, I already am. And once you believe that, defending yourself becomes unnecessary. So never defend yourself, not because you're above others, not because you don't care, but because defending yourself is a battle you don't need to fight. Your life is already fighting for you. Your truth is already standing tall. Your consistency is already writing a story that no critic, no rumor, no lie can erase. So at the end of the day, you don't need to defend yourself. Because your life is the defense, your truth is the evidence, your consistency is the testimony. Let people talk, let them assume, let them misunderstand. None of it has the power to change who you really are. Walk tall, stay steady, and let silence be your strength. Because the ones who matter already know you, and the ones who don't will never believe you anyway. Your job is not to convince the world. It's to live your truth so clearly that time itself does the convincing.